Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another top 10 list. And today my top 10 list is focusing on what I perceive to be the top 10 action stars of all time, pretty much. I got the idea of doing this list after watching the Expendable films recently again, and obviously, if you can see on the channel, I've done a triple review of those movies. And that got me thinking, because there's so many action stars, past and present, in those movies. It really got me thinking, who are the top action stars of all time, really? And that was my inspiration for doing this top 10 list. Obviously, as usual, these lists are subjective. This is my opinion. And there are some of you would argue that there are others that would be deserving to get on this list. So I hope you find this list enjoyable. Thanks for watching, everybody. Obviously, not everybody could make the list, and there are some notable names missing, so I wanted to give some reasonings behind why they are not on my list, and they may certainly be on your list, because all these people I'm going to mention, there is a strong argument for all of them to make a top 10 list of the best action stars of all time. We have Liam Neeson. The only reason he's not on my list really is just because he kind of started quite late with his Taken films and beyond, but he's done some great action films. Keanu Reeves, other than his Matrix and John Wick series, his action credentials are a bit patchy, but no doubt he would make many people's list. And of course the legendary Jackie Chan, probably deserving to get on many people's top 10 lists. The only reason he's not on mine is I only really watched much of his Western cinema releases. I haven't watched much of his foreign language movies, his language movies, so that's why he hasn't made my list. And a few more to mention here, 3 more to mention before we get to the top 10. Kurt Russell. Now, Kurt Russell has made some great action films over the years. Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, to name a couple there. Tango and Cash. He's done a lot over the years, but when you hear the name Kurt Russell, you don't automatically think action star. Dwayne Johnson very, very nearly made my list, but again, when you ask most people who's the greatest action star of all time, not many people would say Dwayne Johnson yet. Maybe in 5-10 years from now he will be on many people's lips as a top action star, but a lot of people don't really talk about him yet in that vein, even though he's one of the most bankable stars in the world, and the legendary late great Bruce Lee. The only reason he hasn't made my list is because his body of work isn't big enough. He hasn't done that many films, but there's no denying that his influence on action movies, and in particular martial arts movies, cannot be denied, and it would make many people's top 10 lists. I'm not denying that. So, coming in at number 10 on my list is Steven Seagal. As you can see there, for each star that I'm talking about, I'm giving you their lifetime box office gross. And it is the original one, not the one that has been adjusted for inflation. Now, there's no denying that even though Steven Seagal is looked on by many as a joke these days in regard to his acting credentials, back in the late 80s, early 90s, he was a genuine action star. He made some outstanding action films, some brutal action films, and his body of work around action movies in that period cannot be denied, and he was a huge influence on the action genre. Whether you take him seriously or not nowadays is another matter. Many don't, and I completely understand that, but at the time he was an action juggernaut in the 80s and 90s. Coming in at number 9, the legendary Chuck Norris, one of the original action stars right through the 70s, the 80s and the 90s and beyond, and continued his popularity into his TV show Walker, Texas Ranger. My personal favourite of Chuck Norris is Hero and the Terror and Sidekicks. I really, really enjoy those two. But he made some great action films in the 80s. He did a lot of films. I think it was Cannon, I think he did a lot with, who were synonymous in the 80s for like making action B movies, and Chuck Norris was their poster boy, really. You could question the quality of some of his movies, but they were really, really fun and in tune with the style of the 80s Chuck Norris movies. His acting has improved with age. It was a bit patchy early on, but there's no denying that Chuck Norris is a legend of the action genre and deserves to be on most people's top 10 list. Coming in at number 8, Jean-Claude Van Damme. He has to be on the top 10 list. He was a huge influence in the action movies in the late 80s. Well, the 80s and the 90s. He made some really fantastic, entertaining action martial arts films primarily, and he was on a huge role in the 80s. Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Cyborg, Absent Without Leave, AWOL, which was called Lionheart, I think most places in the world apart from the UK. He just kept churning out these hugely entertaining martial arts action movies. Yes, his acting wasn't particularly good because he wasn't, a trained actor. Many of these guys were athletes before they became action stars, but his acting has improved with age, as many of them do. And he's had a little bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years since Expendables 2. Definitely deserves to be on the list. Coming in at number 7, Tom Cruise. Probably deserves on many people's to be higher up on the list just because of his lifetime box office pull. I mean, look at that, nearly $4 billion that he has pulled in regard to his movies. He's an undeniable action star. Early in his career, he did a lot of other different movies. He was really going for the Oscar nominations, things. Now, he is a bona fide leading man icon when it comes to movies, and he keeps churning out these great films. And the last 2 or 3 Mission Impossible films have been amongst the best action movies of the last decade. Edge of Tomorrow, Oblivion, Minority Report, Night and Day. You can just go on and on and on with Tom Cruise action films. Top Gun, the new Top Gun's coming out next year, which looks outstanding. You can't really deny his credentials, even though many might not associate him as being an action star. But he really is. Coming in at number 6, Mel Gibson. Great lifetime box office gross for Mel Gibson. Has made some outstanding action movies over the years. 2 movie series in particular, the Mad Max films, especially the second Mad Max film, an action classic. The Lethal Weapon films especially are just incredible action movies, and the first Lethal Weapon film is almost action perfection in regards to how to make an action film. There's no flaws in that film at all. Mel Gibson has proven time and time again that he's a bona fide action star. Yes, he hit a hurdle in the last decade, but he came back with Bloodfather, which was a brilliant action film, action thriller. He appeared in Expendables 3, which was a very good film. So he still continues to be relevant to this day, and he's really buffed up these last couple of years. He's kept in shape, and he could still churn out action films. Coming in at number 5, look at that box office gross lifetime, $5 billion plus. Most of that is primarily due to Star Wars, and especially that bumped up with Force Awakens, and obviously the Indiana Jones franchise. What can you say about Harrison Ford? An action legend. Obviously, again, the Star Wars, the Indiana Jones. You've got Blade Runner, you've got Air Force One, you've got The Fugitive. He's just kept going and going with these action movies, and he's managed to remain relevant to this day, and even to the point where he's making another Indiana Jones, and we're all hoping it's going to be better than the last one. Many of us questioned whether he could pull this off anymore because of his age, because he'll be nearly 80 when it comes out. I'm hopeful that it's going to be good quality, because at the end of the day, I'm not convinced anybody else could play Indiana Jones, so let's hope that the next one is going to be fantastic. Action star legend. Coming in at number 4, Clint Eastwood, the original action icon. From the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and beyond, right up to Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood has been a legitimate badass when it comes to being an action star. He's created some iconic characters over the years. The Man with No Name, Josie Wales, Dirty Harry, you name it, Philo Beddoe. He's just made some absolutely iconic action films, and a lot of people forget how important Clint Eastwood movies have been over the years. For me, he's my favourite actor of all time, but I have to be fair with List in the sense of, is he the most iconic action star of all time? Probably not. Probably arguably the most iconic movie star of all time, but not action star of all time, but definitely deserves to be on this list. Number 3, Bruce Willis. What can you say really about Bruce Willis? Went from TV stardom to movie stardom, starred in Die Hard, which exploded his career, and Die Hard, very much like Lethal Weapon, is an almost perfect action film. Can't think of any flaws in regards to that film, and he's just gone from strength to strength over the years and made some absolutely iconic action films. Last Boy Scout, he's been in the Expendables films. He's just done it over and over again and proven that he is an action star. Yes, his star has fallen over the last few years because it seems his enthusiasm for movies has waned over the last few years. There's not many movies you see these days with Bruce Willis in where he isn't phoning in performances. It's a shame. His passion seems to have left him, but he has got an iconic film back catalogue when it comes to action movies, and he's got a great legacy. Number 2, I really struggled between number 2 and number 1. I think they both deserve to be either number 1 or number 2, and ultimately I settled on Stallone at number 2, Sylvester Stallone. What can you say? Right from Rocky to the Rambo series to Tango and Cash, Cobra, and then his reinvention over the last few years in the Expendables movies, where he's created another bankable series of action films that were just really well made action films, and it showed that old-fashioned action films are still relevant today. He's still very important in the film industry. We're all hoping that his new Rambo film, John Rambo, that's coming out later this year, is going to be of the same quality of some of the other Rambo films, but there is no denying that Sylvester Stallone is completely iconic when it comes to being an action star, and deserving to be on anybody's list this high up. Probably guessed this, but my number 1 has to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, the reason he is my number 1 is probably nostalgia for me, because he was my hero when I was growing up, Arnie. I grew up on his movies, as I did Stallone's and many of the others, but I was obsessed with Arnie. He had posters all over my room when I was a young man. It got me into bodybuilding, watching Arnie films. He was very important to me growing up. I read all his books, and I just could not wait for the next Arnie film to come out. I genuinely couldn't wait, and even when I wasn't young enough, I used to try and get bootleg copies of the movies before I could get into cinema to see them. There's no denying he's absolutely iconic in regards to action movies. The 80s and 90s, he's made some absolutely box office smash hits, and remains, in my opinion, the most iconic action star of all time. So there you go, guys. That is my top 10 list of my favourite action stars of all time. A really difficult list to put together. I can't tell you how difficult it was. Usually when you have these ideas for these lists, you think, oh god, yeah, that's going to be, I'm not going to be spoiled for choice there. I'm really going to, and plenty to choose from, and I had too many to choose from. To whittle it down into 10 was so difficult, and some of those that I had at the beginning of the video that didn't make the top 10 list, many of you would argue that they deserve to be on there, and I won't put much of an argument up, because you're probably right, but that would be your list, not mine. This is my list. So I hope you enjoyed the list. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you did like it, please click the like button. If you're new to the channel, please click subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time on Screen Stars.